I like a little bit of music to start off with. It's where you can start to think about why assessments. What brought you here today to the assessment session? I obviously didn't sell it well enough. Yeah, I think there's a few people said I want to go to the lying down session. Where's Heather gone? Just wait for Heather to come back. Okay, so you both personal train, is that right, as well as group exercise? Come on in. Hey. Oh, Christy, yes. Well, if you want to come in, I'll be around afterwards anyway. Okay. Oh, you next door, are you? Excellent. I'll try not to be too loud then when I get excited. Sorry, group exercise? Yep. Okay, perfect. Just so that I can, tailor that through. What I'd like you to think about before we go into our assessments is, sorry about this for any triggers, I want you to think about the smell of vomit on my feet. Not now, I've washed them since. But that was the result of doing an assessment with my footballer. When he got to the point where he gave me his best performance, it meant that he threw up all over my shoes. And it was at that point that I was thinking, I'm not sure whether I actually like assessments. I love training my clients. I love how they can come in one mood and then they can leave in a completely lifted, changed mood. And I think our job, we're so privileged to be able to do that. And I love the intricacy of thinking, what is my client's hurdle? How can I help them across that hurdle and help them to get to their goals? And then there's the assessment. So I'm like, vomit on shoes. Not sure whether I like it that much. But when I put this talk together, by the time I had done all my research around different assessments, different types of assessments, and different ways in which we can help our clients get a benchmark of where they were, I've reassessed. And I actually quite like an assessment. So hopefully, by the end of this session, I'm going to give you a little love for the assessment. Come on in. Come to the front if you don't mind, and then we'll all get snug together. Okay, so what we're going to cover in the next hour and a bit is why the industry puts such a weight over our assessment. We're going to look at different assessment processes. The assessment integrity, so how valuable it is, how relevant it is, and different types of assessments. Little spoiler, 3, that's all. Okay, we're going to look at how you find an assessment. And I just went through that. And building your own assessments, that's a bit that I get really excited about. I don't like being told what to do. So I like to be able to develop an assessment that is relevant for the person that's in front of me. The type of assessment you'd give my mum to a footballer is very, very different, or it should be. I'm going to give you some examples, then we're going to wrap it up and you get to ask me some questions. So first of all, why does the industry put so much weight in our assessments? Well, the first part is one of the biggest ways of knowing whether someone's going to get an injury is if they've previously had one. And just by getting them to fill out a form of any medical history, we can get to find out what they may potentially be at a risk of. Also, we need to think about where they are in their fitness journey. This morning we looked at training women through different stages of life, and the one thing we took away is everybody experiences life in a completely different lens. And so we want to make sure that we are assessing and finding out what our clients like, what they enjoy, what they've had great experiences with, and potentially what hasn't been so good for them, because we want to make sure that they come back. Okay, so the assessment is at the beginning of your training program. So if you get it wrong, potentially you may never get them back again. And nobody has ever changed their life by one squat or by one training session. So if there is one thing that is the most important about an assessment and any training session, is that your client wants to return, okay? Because it's the consistency that is going to make those results. So we're going to have a little look as well at what do assessments promise. First of all, whichever type of form you use through whichever education provider you've worked with, your medical risks, we want to make sure that we're working within scope of practice. So I mentioned earlier today, if a client has any form of pain, refer out. Okay, get that checked. Once you know whether it is an acute pain or there is an injury, or if it's chronic disease, because then we can go to the research. We want to know whether they've got any form of disease that we need to work with, and just check that out, okay? We want to know their lifestyle, we want to know their motivation and health choices. So how ready they are to train with us. Do they have anything like any body dysphoria or any eating habits that we need to be aware of? And again, what I highly recommend is you work with a triad. Do not be afraid to refer out. Maybe I'm just lazy, but I don't even worry about nutrition, because what I prefer to do is to send my clients to an amazing dietitian that's highly qualified, and that leaves me to do all the fun stuff. So that's what I enjoy. So you can, within our scope of practice, you can make recommendations, but you can't give meal plans. But get a good community of support. And I've never had anybody say, "Can't believe you referred me out." The great thing as well is, when you get a client that is quite obsessed with what they're eating, and you really want to help, but again, we don't want to have that we're fixing, because they're not broken. But sometimes you can flip that and you can say, "Do you know, your running has come on amazing. It'd be really great if you go and see a dietitian who specializes in performance." And all of a sudden they're in, and it takes it away from any form of negative body image, which I just find is quite useful. What do assessments promise to do? So we're going to go through some of these. We're going to put this through the fine-tooth comb, and we're going to look at, does it predict an onset of pain? Does it predict injury? Does it measure body structure, posture, performance strength, and cardiovascular capacity? If on the way you have any questions, you can let me know, or you can save them to the end. I don't mind. We can write it down in the car park over here. It's all good. It's all good. So a prediction of an onset of pain. We talked earlier. We were all here earlier, weren't we? Were you here this morning? No? Okay, so we talked this morning about stepping on a nail, a guy with his work boots on and the nail coming straight through the toe cap. And the excruciating pain that he was in wasn't just because he was a man. It was when they cut the shoe off, they discovered that the nail went straight between the toes, never even touched his skin. And so it's important that we understand pain. Pain comes in two types. We have an acute pain, and that's not like my little schnoodle that's incredibly cute. I mean acute, sharp pain. And that's normally there when we knock ourselves over or trip up or something like that. The second type of pain is our chronic pain that normally comes in about 12 weeks. So after an injury has recovered, it can go into chronic pain. And that's where we come in as trainers, because we can change the experience of pain, because it's the perception. So I stole this quote from the British Pain Society, and I'll do it in my British accent for you. Pain is an emotion experienced in the brain. It is not like touch, taste, sight, smell, or hearing, and it is categorized into acute, less than 12 weeks duration, and chronic, of more than 12 weeks. So that's really super important, and if you want to take a photograph of that, you can. It's from the British Pain Society, an amazing resource if you want to help your clients understand the experience of pain. We can... Fabulous. Have we all got that? Yep. Fabulous. Okay, so pain can be perceived as a warning of potential damage, but can also be present when there is no actual harm being done to the body. And that one is hugely important. We talked earlier about how we get sensors of information that's constantly coming up the body, and then when it goes up to the back of the thalamus, it might say, you've got something touching the back of your leg. And then if it's important enough, it crosses a threshold, you get a trigger, you get a whoop, your muscles change, your chemicals change, your hormones change, you go, what? And it goes through the brain, and it goes, is this dangerous? What do the people think of me in this room? Do I need to have pain? If somebody jumps on you in the middle of target, it's potentially going to experience more pain from it. Whereas if you were on a sport field and you got a win, or you got a shot in tennis and someone comes to go, yeah, you go, yeah, brilliant. And you don't experience any pain because context has everything to do with it as well. So our assessments don't well, we'll come to that when we get to the research on it. Let's not be too much of a spoiler. Predicting an injury. Okay, so to predict an injury, you would need to have a crystal ball. We need to see what's around us. But I did go into the research about the biggest risks of injury. So that is tripping over not a treadmill, can be as well. Tripping over a dumbbell, all right, in the gym. So that's a really quick way of making sure that you don't get an injury. Predicting an injury, if, say, for instance, your client may have a hamstring tear, that, when we look at the research, is a high predictor that they may get a knee injury. Okay, but it's very, very difficult to predict an injury, particularly if you haven't first specified which injury you're trying to predict, which is not what I was told. Posture. Sorry, this doesn't predict injury either. Okay, posture is a reflection of our meat suit and how we hold it according to the mood that we're in. Have you ever seen anybody running like this? Yep. And we might deem that as bad posture. It might not be the most efficient posture, that's different, but we might deem that as, I used to think that was bad posture, but do you know what? If you say to that person, hey, you are doing an amazing job, immediately they go, oh, thanks. And they start to come more upright. And that's because posture is a snapshot in time, particularly if it's static posture. Okay, so when we're moving, we want to help our clients move in a way that they can do it in lots of different ways, and we can do that without fear. And what we can do is help them to be more efficient in a movement, but posture is a correlation to pain and not a causation. And that's super important. Weak muscles, sorry about the image there, but so often we hear the weak pelvic floor. Let me just tell you, our pelvic floors aren't weak. All right, our pelvic floors stop urinary tract infections, fetal infections. They bring life into the world and give us multiple orgasms. That is not a weak piece of kit. All right, that is an amazing piece of kit. If you think a muscle is weak, that may be that you have a perception from the central nervous system that is protecting you. Interestingly, if you want to stand up for me for a moment, very, very quickly. And I want you just to flop down as far as you can go, comfortably. Nobody wants to get injured in here, so feel as far as you can go, and bring that back up for me. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is I would like you to get your second finger and put it on your neck, just between where you feel that it sort of sinks into that. That's it. And now press for 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Now do it one more time, but this time press with a pulse. So quite hard. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now what I'd like you to do is just go back down there for me. Okay, so how many of you went a little bit further? Yep. Okay, you can sit down. Well done. Give yourselves a big clap. Excellent. All right, so we could have thought our hamstring was weak or our hamstring was tight. And then you could have thought that this was the magic button that released your hamstring. And I could sell this as a product called the Joe Groves technique to release your hamstrings. And if you don't do it right, I can bring out the next model, which is a little thing that just pops over the top with grooves in it, and then we can start to poke with it. And if that stops working, I can tell you that you're not doing it right. And now I've got a magnetic one. Put the magnetic one on. And if that doesn't work, we can put little grooves in that go, and we start to use that. Why? Because it wasn't this. Okay, when we move, we have a compelling reason to move. Our bones move, our muscles react to the change of the shape of our joint in order to not let that joint go too far. And the job of the hamstring, if it's in and up for it, it will go, no, don't fall over. And so that's what it's doing. Its job is to say, please don't fall over. So I'm going to react in a way that's a short range to keep you upright. Okay, so it's good. If you're feeling like your hamstring is coming in a short range, or some people might perceive that to be tight, that might be a good thing. And just changing your outlook on it will change the perception of how you feel about the muscle. What also changes the perception of the feeling of the muscle is how much you've moved in different ways. Okay, that's going to give you the skill to move in those different environments. Also, how much you've eaten. Also, how much you've slept. All of these things are going to play a part in it. And I like to think about it as you've got grandma and then you've got granddad. Okay? And grandma, she loves you. She loves you so much, she wants to protect you. So when you went like this, grandma went, oh, wait. I need to check this room. You haven't got your head near the chair, have you? You know, she might be strange. She's wearing a black outfit. All of those things might have been going through grandma's head, okay? But she was there to look out for you. Whereas granddad was like, just get down there. He's like gung-ho. He's jumping off the edge of a cliff without a parachute. He's bonkers. And so grandma is always trying to just come on, just calm down. But what happened was when I did this, I didn't tap a magical trigger point that can't actually be found anywhere in research. I didn't do that. All I did was occupy grandma. And grandma was so occupied by this, granddad allowed you to go further. Okay? So we don't have weak muscles. We might have muscles that aren't being used. So we might have a sequencing that's not there, but we can find that through movement. So that's super exciting. All right, body structure. So let's get crack on with this. I'm not going to give you a slide for height and weight. I think we can all kind of work that one out. Body mass index. This one just takes me back. And those of you that have been in the fitness industry for a long time, you may have done this. Hopefully not as badly as I did. I was the person that was like, oh, I feel a bit uncomfortable pinching your folds, and I confess that occasionally I'd kind of make it slightly bigger on the first time, because then 12 weeks later I could go, oh, look how much you've lost around that area. So please don't do that. But it's a useful tool. Personally, for me, with my clients, most of the clients I have, they're not doing body competitions. So finding out what their favorite outfit is equally a great way of helping them motivate towards their goals. But that can be a useful way. Manual ligament testing. Well, I did ask in the previous session whether anybody was a physiotherapist. So unless you're a physiotherapist, does anybody use this one? Good. Because that is really for a physiotherapist. Looks horrible. If you Google it on YouTube, you get a bit of a wobbly knee. It's a bit ooh. And also it's lying down. So I want to check how my clients move in an assessment. I think we just missed the geometer there. No, maybe that's later. Okay, so measure posture. We've got our static position, snapshot in time. Take a selfie. That depends how much you watch TikTok. Measure flexibility and mobility. Okay, so I say that flexibility and mobility is that skill to be able to get into an end range movement and to get back out again. Okay, everything that I'm thinking about in movement is why. Why do you want to do that? What do you want to do it for? And I'm constantly looking at my clients when they walk in and go, whoa, why didn't you fall over then? That's interesting. Why didn't you do that then? And you will do it, I'm sure. Your client walks in and you know what mood they're in. You know, hey, Elaine, what's been going on? And how do you know? You know because of the way she holds herself as she moves in. Last thing she needs you to do is put her through an assessment and go, you've got a really bad personality. Because that's really what posture is telling us, isn't it? It's telling us how somebody feels in that moment of time. Muscular strength ratios. Okay, so static posture. I mean, we've got the equipment outside looking at that as well. Again, don't get pulled into fear-mongering of text neck and things like that. The research just doesn't support it. If you do happen to be at a desk all the time, yes, your muscles are going to try and find the most convenient way to hold you at the desk. It's not the desk being here or the desk being here. It's the lack of movement, and it's the movement we want to bring in, and that's going to help somebody in through their whole day. So be kind with static posture when someone comes in, particularly if they have taken the guts to come in there.
It's so important with the language as well. Because
Huge.
like an X-ray and the doctor's like, oh my God, you've got such bad scoliosis. You must be in pain all the time. How do you do anything?
Yeah.
And if that was one of my older adults, then they just take that as, I can't do anything. I'm not allowed to do anything. Whereas if they were
Yep.
spoken to like that, the language is just so important psychologically with people.
100%. I mean, Usain Bolt, that is an N equals 1, so it's only one person. He has a severe scoliosis. I put his spine on our female fitness trainers group, and I said, because I wanted to get trainers to have a little think and a little debate. Client came in, they have been cleared by the doctor, they are in no pain. Can I train this? And the answers that I got to that were really interesting, because we've been taught to be afraid of this. It was absolutely don't let them lift and don't let them run. This is the fastest man on the planet. This is the spine of the fastest man on the planet. So we have to try and suspend that judgment and let our clients tell us, one, if they've not said they're in pain, well, then there isn't a problem in anything, okay? It doesn't matter if they've come in like this. You might be thinking, you must be in pain. Then they're not. Well, then you might want to go, well, that's really interesting. I wonder whether you could do a squat like this. And you might go, can you just drop your ear to your other shoulder whilst looking out the window? And they go, yeah. And you go, oh, that's interesting. And then you say squat. They may choose a different squat from that point of view. But at no point do you need to be judgmental on it. So this is the non-judgy session. Oh yeah, there we go. I knew that the ganometer was coming in. This has recently been taken out of NASM, probably because of people like me. But yeah, good. I'll just sort of I'll make it up on those numbers. My only thing with this, again, lying down. It's totally different when you're lying down, right? To actually movement. I want to know somebody's skill when they're unmoving. This is James. He's doing the famous overhead squat, and I know what you're all doing now. Checking out his ankles and his knees and his arms there to check the range of motion. Or am I the only one? That's what I was taught. Overhead squat, check the range of motion. Yep. Check that thoracic, which interestingly doesn't actually flex or extend, despite a lot of people saying that they're going to get more flexion and extension in the thoracic. Slight problem, it's called a bone, okay? The sternum will get in the way. So actually what you get is more range through the lumbar or through the shoulders. But if we did my little technique, we don't have to do the technique, because I'll show you how you can actually do that with movement. Then we can create more range at the foot and ankle, through the knee, and through those shoulders. And later on, if you're feeling frisky, we can use this test and make it more relevant to a client. Measuring performance, so power, muscular endurance, body weight, and relative strength. So first of all, our power. Here is an example of a throw. And what we do is we start supposedly on the same line, but I do believe that James keeps wandering. So that could also be something like a broad jump. Muscular endurance. So here we're doing as many sit-ups as possible in time with a metronome. I'm just saying that because when I play this, if you do hear his voice, it's very northern. So I'm just translating. Before next beat, do you like a good northern accent? Okay, and moving on to our body weight star exertion. Come on in. No, don't worry. Come on in. Come in. Hey, nice. Welcome. So we've got our body weight star exertion. This is great with all sorts of clients, but it's one that particularly my elderly clients really enjoy to do. So what we're just saying is why we want to assess why they're so important. It gives us an opportunity to find out where our client is in their fitness journey. But we want to make sure that we're doing this in a positive way, in a way that brings our clients back. And I was explaining that my footballer, he did his assessment and threw up on my feet, which is good for him because he likes that experience. But most of my clients would never come back if that was the case. And I wasn't too sure whether I wanted him back, to be fair. So what we're doing here is we're taking a standard star exertion test and we're using external targets, and he's having to reach his foot out as far as he can, so it's easily to be remeasured after that as well. Relative strength, you've possibly used this one on here. Thank you, perfect. Our press up, so doing your press up, going down towards the fist, to make sure you've gone all the way down and up again. So again, relative strength, this could be a squat with load, okay? Yes, fist. So if you've got a smaller fist, yeah, just touch, yeah. That's it, yeah. You can't count it. You don't count it. Yeah, so you have to be strict. Yeah. I know. But these are sort of tests that are used around. Measure cardiovascular capacity. Has anybody done a VO2 max? Horrible, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, we're back with my footballing client. Yes, I've done that when I was younger. It's not very nice. Obviously, it can be a really useful test in that the higher our VO2 max, the more of an indication of how fit we are and reducing those risks of heart disease and chronic disease. It's not essential. It's not essential to make somebody feel like that. A true VO2 max on a treadmill with an oxygen mask, and you go until you just pass out. Incidentally, going back to grandma, before you go to any range, I think it was in a previous session where they said you go here because of the muscle spindles. What that forgets is grandma and granddad. Before you go anywhere near your arm going so far that you're going to snap it off like a chicken bone, or before you go so far that you start passing out, grandma is getting involved. And she's saying, I don't care how many Mars bars you ate yesterday. I am not letting you work out anymore. And she will shut you down. And because she's got your best interests at heart. So before you think about any form of energy system or going any further, don't forget, we're not cars with just this posterior chain or anterior chain. The body parts. Between every single body part and every single compelling reason to move, we have grandma and granddad having a little conversation. I don't think you should go that far. You'll hit that table. They're always talking to us. So it's quite good to remember that. Bleep test. And that's great because when you're with your mates, you're basically keeping grandma happy. Because grandma's like, oh, this is fun, we're with our friends. And granddad's going, yeah, I'm going to win. I'm going to beat everybody. But then what happens? Unless you're the fastest person in the pack, people start to whittle out. And then grandma's more aware that you're making her work hard. Okay, she can start to focus on the task. And then she might make you feel a bit rubbish, which might make you stop that. And that's what we start to talk about when we look at fatigue management. And that's really important because when you start training your client, you need to make sure that you're working through that stage, because if you stop training your client when grandma's just whinging, you might just miss out on the magic adaptations that you need for that client. So I basically talked through the speeded up version of the bleep test, but now Dan is lonely. Okay? Dan is still there running, but out of the 12 that started, he's the only one left. So now grandma is going, I think you should stop. I think you should stop. So it doesn't matter how fit he is, the test he's going to get there is different to if he had fitter people continuing with him. Grandma would allow him to go a little bit further. And why am I saying this? Because it's relevant to the test scores. So if you're on the sideline and you've got your client doing a bleep test and you're going, come on, you are amazing. You've got just 20 seconds left. You can do this. They're going to go, they're going to go, they're going to go. But if you just go, right, off you go. Doop, doop, doop. That's a very different test. Okay, so we need to make sure that it doesn't matter which, but if you are going, yeah, okay, the next time you test them, you need to go, yeah. Good. Glad we got that.
So your goal is really, rather than like sticking to like the boring assessment test where you have to do is like thinking creatively on how can you like meet them where they are and work with them to do the testing but in a different way.
Well, I'm going to get even more excited because these tests are what I still say quite textbook. Yeah.
But it's just you're taking a different spin on them.
Yeah.
So you can achieve them but in a different way.
Absolutely, yes. It becomes more relevant in a moment when we start to look at redoing it. But I have seen people coaching on the side of an assessment, and as long as the coaching remains the same, that would be acceptable. So this is your lactate threshold test, your test. I don't think that's how you pronounce it, but anyway, again, not nice. Okay, we're pushing that anaerobic threshold. We're going to start treadmill. 4.5 kilometers per hour. Perfect. For a moment, I just wanted to go back to the overhead squat, just with what we mentioned. What I was taught was that it was about range of motion around the foot and ankle and the knee. I was also taught that if the knee came in, then you're getting a knee valgus. And if that right knee was tipping in, that might be due to a tight adductor and a weak glute. Well, we know that a muscle is only part of what the perception of the central nervous system is. So it could potentially be skill-related around the adductor, could be something around the glute, or just maybe they stubbed their left toe before they walked in. Or maybe they are a sports player that requires very quick eversion at the foot and ankle, which unlocks the knee at pace, creating flexion, abduction, and internal rotation. Just maybe. Or maybe they saw someone who was really attractive out the corner of the window, and as they did the squat, like, ooh. So it could be any of those reasons. So it's just worth looking at what that reason might potentially be. Our assessment process, so we're getting nearer there. Right, first of all, we have to rule out clients that shouldn't be training, okay? If they have just fallen down the stairs, probably best not train today, okay? So if they have had an injury, refer them out, and once they've got the doctor's note, they can come back. Client referral, if we do find that they've got high blood pressure through our PAR-Q, through those assessments, then we would refer back out. Don't take any chances. We need to research our client's history. If they have had an injury, I'm happy. And I don't mean that I'm happy that they've had an injury. I mean that I know what I can do. I can go to the research and I can find out how long does it take for that injury to recover, how that injury was caused. Because now that you know that I came from the bathroom on the first night here and fell over the table, hit my head on a chair, and got myself a black eye, you know that that's how I caused it, and therefore I may have a trigger and a response if I'm in a room that's dark, getting up in the middle of the night. So we need to know what our clients may be triggered by. Injury fears, we need to know chronic pain, and what movements for someone who's experiencing chronic pain they don't like. And we'll all know that if we have had somebody who's in chronic pain with their knees and you go like that in front of them, they might experience that pain. So we need to know what we want to change and adjust. We want to know what they do, what their strategies are in order to impact that movement. Okay? So we want to know techniques that have worked for them, because that's really important, and techniques that haven't worked. Any previous injuries. So as I mentioned, hamstring tear is a high predictor of a knee injury. If you've had a meniscus and you have surgery, you've got a high likelihood from the research I've read to get arthritis, whereas if you don't have surgery, you're less likely to get arthritis. So those sorts of things you can research up on. If you do shod running, so cross country, you're also less likely to get injuries than you are from road running, which is really interesting. Well, it's because of the skill that you do. So to start off with, if we want to design an assessment, whether we're using a textbook assessment or our own, we need our SMART goals. We need it to be specific. So I'm 100 kgs, I want to lose 10 kgs. Okay, specific. It's measurable. It's measurable because I can either use the fat calipers, or I can use a pair of trousers, or I could put someone in a flotation tank, whatever it is that you want to do. But it's measurable. It's achievable. If I said to you, I want to win a bikini, a juniors bikini modeling championship, that is not achievable because I am not a junior. Okay, I'd have to change that goal and need to make it a veteran bikini modeling competition. Realistically inspired and motivated. Okay, so say somebody wants to get a six-pack. Do they? I mean, do they really? Do we know what has to go into getting a six-pack? All right, so do you really want to train every single day and not ever eat anything that you enjoy ever again? And then when you're miserable and hate everybody and life itself, and you've left your partner and you get your six-pack and you go and get your photo session and you're so starving and you eat and 5 minutes later you go, but you live off those photos for the next year. Most of the time, when you say to someone, are you prepared to do that? They go, actually, no, I just want to be able to look nice. Cool. All right, great. Move on. We've got a realistic goal. Time bound. So I want to lose this amount of weight by the time I go to the wedding that is in 12 weeks' time. Okay? Make it specific. Yeah. Smart. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound in whatever we do. Okay, so design the assessment. Do they have the skill to start the process? If someone says, I want to run a marathon, you go, yay, that's brilliant, I'd love to see you run. And they go, we go, okay, so we're not going to be assessing running today. We're going to start off with what you can do, which is stepping over a hurdle. Or we're going to start off with assessing you walking. Okay? Well, I would say from the research I've read, it's best to allow him to run in as many different ways as possible, and he will find his best run. So what I no, so if he's new to running, I would get him. Can we hold that? And I will go back to it afterwards, just because I've got a lot to get through, but it's something that I'd like to go into because there's definitely a few things I can do to help there. Okay. So if they can't do the movement, chunk the move it down. So when I started doing for the first time clean and jerk, at first I couldn't do it. So I started off with the clean, and then I worked on the jerk, and then I started to put the movements together. Okay, so we can split down that assessment that way. To conduct the assessment, specificity, validity, objectivity, and reliability. And I now just give myself a pat on the back because I had one of those braces before I came out here, and I was paranoid that I would not be able to say those words. I will not be able to say them later after a glass of wine, that is for sure. So specificity of the test. We must be testing the thing that we actually want to measure. Okay, so if somebody is playing football and you're measuring their power output of a chest press, how relevant is that? It's not specific to what we actually want, so make it specific. Validity, the fitness test must measure the component of the fitness that it's supposed to be. So is it cardiovascular that you're measuring? Is it anaerobic, or is it strength? Objectivity, now this means that if you go away and somebody has to sub for you and they do the same tests, will you get the same results? Okay, and if it was the fat calipers and someone had to sub for me, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Objectivity, so that's our inter-tester reliability on there. Reliable, now this would be, if you stood on the scales and you keep weighing yourself, if it was 5 pounds out before you started, it would be reliable, but it wouldn't be relevant because it's still saying you're heavier than you are. So make sure that it's reliable on that test, okay? Right, so then once you've done that and you've put them through a test, you might discover they weren't as good as you thought they were at something, so you change it and you redeliver your SMART goals. This is where we get a multiple assessment where you might be assessing two things. So they want to run, but they also want to beat their son who has taken to doing the chest press. That's what boys, isn't it? We've got a bench. So that might be two tests. But in that, it's the same. You need to make sure that the environment is the same, okay, each time. So if you are testing, for example, you're doing a bleep test followed by a bench test, you need to do that the same the next time, okay, because it will influence the scoring of the test. So far we've discovered that an assessment will not predict injury and it will not predict pain. So if you've used anything like FMS, it might be a great tool for your eyes, but it's not going to predict an injury or predict pain. So we rule out clients that can't train. We refer clients if we're not sure if they can train. We work around problems with clients around their history, because we all know our clients don't come with us and go, I'm absolutely fine. They come with a whole bag of history. They're like an ex-partner with a whole luggage suitcase that they've brought. Then we design our assessments. Complete the assessment, complete your SMART goals. Okay, sorry, did you want? I can come back and afterwards we can go through this. So meaningful assessments. Okay, so just a reminder of what we're doing on each different type of assessment. So this is where we're getting to, putting it together, okay? Very briefly, how long have I got now? Am I on?
You're on track, you're fine.
Brilliant, okay, because this is really important and I probably can't give this justice, okay? This is something that you may not have heard talked about a lot. This is the faster scale of the skill to performance continuum. If you're able to do a skill, so I can walk or I can run, we have the skill to do it. But that sits on a continuum. So here is the what I would call performance, all right? And that is doing the deed. So if a client comes in and according to their goals, they don't want to run a marathon, or they don't want to, I don't know, be a tennis player or something like that. You might go, okay, I want to do a squat test because I know they're going to have to sit on the toilet, they're going to have to sit in the car, so that might be a good thing to do. And you need to know, can they do it? And if you say, can you squat, and they go, you might need to teach them because they might have not got the skill to do that movement. But once we've done that, then we can start to test it, okay? But here, in the intensity, this is really what we're testing. So if someone comes in and they're good at squatting, all right, so say this is my power lifter, my test has to sit here. It has to look like the competition squat. No variables. It has to look like the competition squat. And I need to load her up, and that's where I'll be going for her 3 reps towards her 1 rep max. Okay, because I need to have the very best performance, which is why my footballer puked on my feet, because I was pushing him to that point. If your client doesn't have the skill, don't test it. Don't test it. You don't have to do a whole ream of tests, but make it efficient, make it relevant to their needs. In our mentorship program, I talk you through how you take a skill and you allow unconscious learning. And we do that by creating different compelling reasons to move. So it might be that, say, for instance, our person comes in and they do the squat, and every time they squat, they go like this. And you go, that could be that they've got a weak glute. That could be that they've seen that good-looking person over there. But what we might do is get them to do a whole load of squats where you say, can you just take your right hand to the side and your left hand over your head? And you go, yeah, they do that. They do this. And then you might get them to do this, and you might get them to do that. And it looks very strange. And everyone in the dream goes, what are you doing? And you go, it's motor learning. I'm doing motor learning. Go and look at the research. And then they go back to their squat, and they have changed the way they squat. But you haven't had to tell them. You haven't been judgy with them. What they've done is they've found their own best squat through unconscious moving. Okay? But as far as the assessment goes, if they're more in the white zone, then we will change the movement to make sure it is something that we can test. Incidentally, if you're thinking of sport, powerlifting is high performance. If you were doing CrossFit, high performance. There's not many variables. If you're playing NFL, pretty 50-50, because the chances of you doing the same movements in that match, same each time, are going to be very, very slim. And then here would be something that would be loads of different variables. So you might have your client juggling, reciting poetry at the same time as doing their task, which is fabulous with all sorts of clients. They love having a good game. Okay, so moving on, SMART goals. I'm going to keep saying SMART goals so you remember SMART goals are essential for our assessments. Can they perform the movement? So building up a running technique. So this could be great for your client just to start off with, getting that knee. Because for running, what we want is an opposite extensor reflex. As your knee drives through, the opposite hamstring works. You need a tall torso because it's going to make you more efficient. And we need to make sure that our movements do look like running. So it doesn't actually look like an Olympic lift. It's not the way you get triple extension when you're running. So that, to me, is quite interesting. Now he's adding resistance on here, so he's getting that push through. And once you start to be able to perform that, we can assess his run. I wouldn't like to say without knowing, and if you were getting pain, I would suggest you get it checked. But Okay. Yeah, yeah. It could be that you're holding a bit of tension, but again, we'll go back to that, okay? If that's all right. Yep. Um, all right, so defining factors with it, we need to know that when we're doing our assessment, as much as possible, we get the time of day the same. Okay, we might not be able to control the weather, but if you had planned an assessment, all right, it might have been you did it on week 1 and now it's week 6 and you wanted to do it again and it's pouring down with rain, might not be the best day, change it. Okay, environment, make sure the surface is the same, make sure that the noise is the same. For me, if there was loud noise, it would influence the way I performed. Again, different assessor. Accuracy of measurements, make it as accurate as possible. Test protocol followed exactly the same as before. So we're getting to how we design our own assessments. Athletes' emotions, it's really important. If your client comes in and they've come in with bad news, might not be the best day to assess them. Okay, so meet the person that walks into the door. State of hydration, what they've been up to, athletes' health, recent colds, injuries, all of these things. Medication of athletes, so some of them may be on medication, asthmatic drugs, things like that. So 3 types of assessment. I'm going to get through this academic. So these are for the clever people. Yep. This is the PhD that came up with an idea and then he narrowed the test, or she narrowed the test down, got it tested, hopefully retested. Those academic studies get filtered into our correlation studies. So an academic study might be BMI. BMI is amazing at saving lives across countries and cities. Not great for the individual. Not great for the individual. I had a lovely lady who had had a previous eating disorder, but because she's not very tall, when she went to our doctor in the UK, BEPA, they did her BMI and they said, oh, you're close to being overweight. How did they do it? What kind? They just did a BMI, so just doing the normal BMI test. And unfortunately, because she's short, it means the height to weight ratio doesn't work in her favour. So I had to sit her down, take her for a coffee and say, honestly, this person should never have said that to you. So it's important that it is a useful academic test, but it's not good on the individual. So just be mindful of that with your clients. Yeah. 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 It's good academically because the variables that they measure are specific. And so it's remeasurable, and with the actual test overall, it shows a reduction of chronic disease, obesity. It's just not specific enough on individuals because something has to get compromised. The same thing with correlation in the I think I was trying to think of another relevant one, but maybe hockey, women's hockey, they all have to squat, I think it's 150 kg. Well, that's got nothing to do with hockey, but if I've got a client that wants to play hockey at that level, doesn't matter what my opinion of that test is, I need to use it because they need to pass it. Same as we have rugby and guys have to bench a certain amount. And why have they used that correlation? Why have they used that academic test? Because that test is specific, it is measurable, it is reliable, and it does test power, strength, output, but it's not actually relevant to the skill that they use. So just have that in mind. Then we get to the one that I get super excited with and why I am saying we'll answer more questions at the end. Trainer defined. So first of all, academic. Here's a 5.5 test. And so measuring it out, I'm going to whip through this. And so you run for 5, and then you stop and you turn and you run back. Come on, move, boys, move. Have we seen this one before? So this is supposed to be for agility. But I'm already saying to here, is it? I mean, it is if you run in straight lines. It is if you run in straight lines. Yeah, it's not a test that I would necessarily need my mum to do. Turn back. It is good fun to do though. But again, you might go, oh, I'm going to use that test. I like that test. But my client actually has to go that way, and then that way. So I'm going to add that on. Just saying. Correlation. Got a correlation test here. A broad jump. So again, if that's usable, that power output. Correlation, remember, that's the same as you'll die of a shark attack if you eat ice cream in the summer. That's a correlation, not a causation. Okay, so just like posture doesn't cause pain. It's a correlation. Trainer defined, okay, I can jump up and down now. This means we can go throw away the book and we do what we want as long as we stick to the rules. And the rules are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-driven, okay? Specific. We want to make sure that we know what it is. So this is for a basketball drill. This actually looks like basketball, which is awesome. Brilliant. I'm done it. I've got there. I'm just really pleased that I've got through the bit that I needed to get to the exciting stuff. Okay. So finding your assessment, how do we do that? This was the hardest thing for me because you could go to a textbook or you could pay loads of money for another course and then you could trust that what they've told you is right. You could trust me that what I've told you is right, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to be able to question me. So we need to look at papers, we need to look at journals, and so if I just go backwards then. All right, so that brings me to not my pants, these are my knickers. In the UK, we call these pants. And a quick reminder for those that weren't here this morning, there is too much to go into the whole lot now, but if you do think, actually, I would really like to know how to look at research and how to question your bias, I'm all over that. I absolutely love it because I was the actress that did not want to read research. Okay, I wanted to watch Netflix instead. But these are my pants, and what I do is I read everything that my clients are reading because I need to know what they're reading, and then I go through those sources, I look at scientific blogs, I look at who they're referencing, and then I learn to ask great questions, and that's the biggest challenge, okay? But this is where I need to know, is my test reliable, okay? Is the interreliability of that test going to give me an accurate score that's going to help my client? I use something where I check who the author is, where they're relevant, the size of the studies. I've not quoted one study for you because I read hundreds of studies to be able to find the balance of quality research. If you want those studies, that's the email address, okay? And I can send them to you, but I recommend that you check them. All right, you check them and you make sure, because that's the whole thing. I want you to have those tools. But in the pants, what I do is I let go of Instagram. That comes out of the side of my legs. I let go of any studies that are done on cockroaches. A lot of psychotherapy is done on cockroaches. Guinea pigs, pelvic floors, that goes out there as well. Oh, spines. So your Stuart McGill brace, done on smashing a little piggy, okay, 8,632 times. And that's where we all got the fear of you've got to do a squat in neutral spine, which makes no sense because it's actually about the shear of the spine. And in order to squat, even if you're incredible, you've gone more than 35 degrees because they found that 35 degrees was the point. So just get good at squatting, just be good at being comfortable. So studies on pigs goes out the side of my legs, okay? And what I get left in the crotch are those studies that are of the level that I want to use because I think my clients deserve the very best. So there we go. So I use something called the impact factor, and that is something that the higher the standard of the study is, because of the author, because of the relevance, because of the number of the study, it gets given something called the impact factor. And you can just Google the, so the article that you read is in a journal, And that journal has an impact factor based on the author's, the replicability of it, and the study quality. Okay, so that really, really helps me out. Now, correlation. So I mentioned that's normally your sports clubs that use correlation, sport organisations, and we go to the research and go, well, is it the best for my clients? This is a combination, it's the biggest combination I could find of correlation. So bench press for rugby players, yay, but doesn't tell you that they're going to run quicker. Shuttle run, 40-yard dash, vertical jump, broad jump. They're all correlation. Doesn't mean they're not useful. So let's make it more specific. So now what we've done is we've got him to catch, turn, and accelerate out for his sport. A soccer pass, because you say soccer. That looks a bit more relevant, doesn't it, than a bench press. Still wouldn't get my mum to do this. This is Anna, who you met earlier on. And Anna is incredibly good at a one-legged squat. But what we discovered was I used something called a coaching for 10. So I got her to give me her best one-legged squat. And she found that getting out of her right one-legged squat was harder for her, and so her left one she could get out rapidly. So what I did was create a test that was purely for her right leg to see how many times she could get out of that low position. So it was also working on that skill that she wants, and that to her was relevant to her movement. So you could use a squat because, as I said, it's a great introduction to everybody that comes in, a one-legged squat, or you can adjust it to something that's specific to them. This is Jay. He's my footballer. You'll know that he had a hamstring tear, which later led to a knee injury when I found him. So I did my research on hamstring tears. First time I assessed with his hands down. The reason I used hands down was to make sure that, first of all, I didn't make him do that movement with just his hamstring. So by putting the hands down, I measured the distance from one cone to the other, allowing him to use his glutes. Okay, so just by having that flexion in that landing, it meant that he was able to go and in a safe way for him. He was fine. He's a footballer. So we got him to do it again, but this time hands up. We can see he can't go as far. Absolutely fine. But that's his test. And then when we remeasured that and he was able to go further, he's happy. Okay, and it's relevant to him because they're the injuries that he had. I'm laughing because this is Toby. I love Toby. He's so cute. He's your typical kind of 18, 19-year-old. He's brilliant at tennis and he wouldn't mind telling you so himself. So if you've ever trained a tennis player, at first I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. So I asked him, what did he want to work on? He said his deep backhand. First of all, I got him to continue to do his backhand until it was consistent. And how I got him to do that was every time he did a movement, I'd say, what is that out of 10? And when he started to say, that's a 9, that's a 9, that's a 9, that's a 9, that was our assessment. Okay? So I said, right, I want nothing like less than a 9. Sometimes you say a 10, and that's the aim. So there's his backhand. And incidentally, if you're not at a tennis court, but you do have a tennis player, get them to bring their tennis racket because you've just made it more specific. The difference just holding a tennis racket will make, and a ball in the other hand, all of those little things will make it more specific to your task. This one does make me giggle. So we were testing his speed of his serve, 104 miles per hour. Watch this. He said, did you see that? Now, you might not have a speed pedometer to do that, but again, you could be measuring how far someone does that with their tennis racket. Would I use that with some of my elderly ladies? Absolutely. I tell you what, there's nothing that rocks their socks than actually throwing a ball as far as they can or hitting a tennis ball as far as they can to reduce fear around a shoulder or a neck. But this is my favorite bit, because this is how you start to like play it around. I don't do too many, but this one, he needs to get into the net and out again. So now what I'm doing is not testing the power output, but thinking about the energy system. So we've got creatine phosphate, short and powerful. We've got lactate system, and then we've got anaerobic. In tennis, we want to think about how long someone's in the court for, how far they have to go around that court, and how much time they're going to be on that ball. I had to do something on tennis because I live in Wimbledon. He did play at Junior Wimbledon. This was quite a nasty drill. And then when I took this into the training session, we took different stations, different movements, put them together, and they all follow on. I thought he was going to say something rude to me at the end of that one. This one's down, that's cricket. I'm going to move on from cricket because I want to show you that it isn't always about sport, okay? This is Raf. Absolutely love Raf. I'm going for a basic, simple press-up test. He didn't need anything else. His other goal was to get up out of bed without assistance from his wife or his crane. He has polio and MS. So he has a cage around his knee. He can't weight bear on his knee without his cage. And the MS was a fear factor because he was struggling with his crutches. He's not struggling at the moment, but you know, what I love is he's up for just giving everything a go and trying different things. But I didn't need an assessment overhead squat, or I didn't need an assessment of running around the pitch. That was perfect for him. And I love the fact that even though I'm away at the moment, he's sending me his videos of doing his press-ups which is just fab. But he has progressed, by the way, to he's been doing suspended press-ups on his hands and his legs fully suspended. So he's fabulous. Okay, here's James again. We're changing this. I would like to get you to experience a little bit of a squat there. Maybe we'll come back to that in a moment. So he's doing different movements there. And you will see that just by changing these movements, he's going to actually improve his squat. But this is unconscious. I would consider this more of a drill, to be fair. Or I might measure one of those and see the range of motion on it. Here's Liz. She's my power lifter. So to her, do you remember our diagram of our white and black? She would be on the black on there. Her movement, it needs to be really, really specific. And the measuring of that needs to be really specific. Okay, so future, we've got GPS, we've got all sorts of things that are changing our assessments, wearables. You can even compete real time with athletes. That's awesome. But what I want you to take away from today is don't be tied to the textbook. Think about your client, what it is that they want to get. Get to know them. Get to know what rocks their boat, what they enjoy, and think about a way that you can build an assessment that makes them want to come back and train with you. And if that means throwing beanbags into a bucket, that's awesome, because you can measure how far that is, how many beanbags went into the bucket, and how didn't. Make sure that you're using your SMART goals. Use an assessment that are needed for your client to track their goals. Know how to find an academic and correlation tests. Know how to build your own test and match the standard of all tests. Okay, make sure all your assessments are reliable, repeatable, meaningful, and continue to assess and adapt as required. If you've got 2 seconds, what I'd like you to do is just stand up for me. And I would like you to, just for 30 seconds, all right, you're going to squat. Now, depending on if you've got an injury, don't injure yourself, okay? If you're really tired after the day, don't do it. We're going to just squat is option 1, or option 2 is I want you to jump squat, okay? And I want you to do that, and you're going to count yourselves for me, all right? You're going to count yourselves how many you get. Are you ready? On your marks, get set, and go. Lovely. Who's going for the jumping squats? We've got some jumping squats over here. That's awesome. Great. Lovely. And I want you to think about how this feels to you. All right. Keep going. You're nearly halfway there. Keep going for me. You're on 15 seconds. You've got just 15 seconds. Fabulous. Look at the height on that. That's awesome. Brilliant. Keep that going. We're nearly there. We've got 5, we've got 4, we've got 3, we've got 2, we've got 1. Relax for me. Lovely. Okay, so the bad news is we're going to do it one more time. Okay, one more time. But that was amazing. What did you get? 28? 24, 27, 28. We've got some good scores on there. Okay, that was amazing. So are you ready to do it one more time? Yes? Okay, let's do this. This is an assessment. All right, this is specific. It's a squat or a squat jump. It's measurable. It's time-driven. And you're counting it. Okay, so it's reliable. Are we ready? On your marks, get set. But this time, I'm going to give you some energy. Come on. You have so got this. I'm going to get that. Oh, my God. I can't believe how high you're going. That's fantastic. Do you know what? My mum could go higher than that. Honestly, I've seen old ladies jump higher than that. Is that all you've got? Let me know when you're trying. Oh my God, that was amazing. That's the one I'm sending to Instagram. That's the one. Oh, this is a TikTok one. Come on. You've got this going. Oh my gosh, even higher. Got this going. Come on. We've got this. And you're done. Okay. How did we go? 35. Oh my goodness. Okay, we just need to get that was awesome. So you need to come to IDEA and find out why I changed the way I said what I said. What I did with you was coaching in a very nasty way, but I started off being nice, and then I was this evil woman. I don't know who she was. She came in, she was sarcastic. She said that my mum could jump higher than you. But that's such a nice, playful way, because I knew I could do that with you, because we'd been eye contact, and I knew that you weren't going to go, And just giving that back. So sometimes when you're with your clients, you can change your energy, and don't be afraid to, you don't always have to be super positive. You can go down there and then bring them back. But you saw the difference of the numbers. So next time I did that assessment with you, you'd have to do 2 and you'd have to know what's coming. But you would know what's coming, so I might have to work harder. You guys have been absolutely fabulous. Thank you very much. I don't believe there's anyone in this room, is there? Now, no. So if you want to ask me some questions, if you haven't already, I'm Joanne Groves, and I run a female fitness trainers group. I do lots of different workshops on there, so on Zoom, so you can come and find me, and you can ask me any questions.